What is up, Insaners, and welcome to another video of the Fantasy Premier League 2022-23 season. In this one, guys, we will be reviewing some of the FPL drafts that managers have gone for this season for Game Week 1. Now, thank you so much to all the managers that shared their teams. We'll try to do this at least one more time before the season starts. Guys, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see today. You can also subscribe to the channel to catch up on all the preseason content and have a great start to the season. Straight with that, let's start with the first draft. Now, the first team that we have here is Red Devils FC. Now, it's a 4-5-1 formation that this manager is playing. From an overall perspective, guys, I think this team looks really strong. Yes, it has only one striker option, one premium striker in Harry Kane, which you can easily switch to Haaland if you want, considering that they're in the same price category. From a defensive point of view, it's pretty strong as it has Trent, Cancelo, and James. I think these three are going to be really popular template picks that most of the managers would go for. The other two are Zinchenko and Aït-Nouri, guys. I think Zinchenko is a bit interesting because we still don't know if he's going to start for Arsenal or what position he could start for the Arsenal team. Guys, there are high chances that Zinchenko could play as an out-of-position player in midfield, and I think that would also enhance his FPL potential. I mean, of course, there's a big if in that scenario. He can even kind of give a cover up to Tierney in case he gets injured, which, believe me, guys, he does a lot. I think Aït-Nouri is pretty much nailed, and at 4.5 million for the Wolves team, who are strong defensively, who have a great run of fixtures, I think that's a really good option. In terms of midfield, guys, I really like the midfield here as it has Salah, of course. Salah is a great captaincy option. He's also a safe FPL pick because you're probably going against a template. You're probably losing out on a lot of points if Salah does well in the initial weeks and you don't have him. Guys, I also like the fact that this team has two 8 million spots for midfielders. I think there are a lot of good options in that 8 million midfield category. And for this draft, for this manager, he's gone for Saka and Mahrez. Now, both are really good options. Both are definite starters for their respective teams. And you have a lot of options to kind of choose from here as well. In case if you're not convinced with these options, guys, you can easily go for Foden, who's also kind of considered a main option for the Pep system this season. He's probably going to start ahead of Grealish on that left side. Other than that, you can also go for Kulusevski, who's playing for Tottenham. There's also an option in Mount, guys, who could be doing really well. He's a consistent FPL performer as we've seen over the past seasons. I think this should be good. I like the fact that he's gone for Rashford here, guys. It's probably an upgrade from the likes of Neto, who he has on the bench. I think Rashford, if he's getting consistent minutes, I think there's a slight change in system. There's a slight change in temperament. I think he's raring to go. This could be a decent season for Rashford, especially when he's priced in that 6.5 million category. Now, in terms of the bench, this manager has Neto. I think he's enough to kind of cover off. If you want to save some money for this particular draft, you can probably downgrade a Neto to maybe an Andres Pereira who's 4.5 million. You'll probably end up saving 1 million, which then you can use to kind of upgrade Aït-Nouri, or you can just have maybe 0.5 million in the bank to kind of adjust and make transfers later on. Overall, pretty solid team, guys, and let's move on to the next one. Now, next team, we have Saffron 11, guys, who is playing a 4-3-3. I think this is a very interesting formation. I don't think so a lot of managers would be going for a 4-3-3. Now, one of the most interesting things about this team is that, guys, he has gone for the likes of Kane, Jesus, and Haaland in the same team. I don't think so a lot of managers are going to do that. Yes, Jesus and Haaland are kind of template picks. They're kind of safe picks. Most of the people probably who are going for a front two and up top two, they're going to go for Jesus and Haaland. But I've not really seen a lot of teams who have gone for such a strong front three in terms of the attackers. I like the defense, guys. It has James and Cancelo as well as Trent. I think, as I mentioned, these three are going to be really popular picks. Tomiyasu, I'm still not very sure because he's not really featured a lot in the preseason. There are chances that he might not start in the first game in the Premier League. But again, I think he's still a decent option to go for. Yes, the attacking potential is not very high, but I think he's a decent option if he's fit. I really like Mendy in goal, guys. His price is such that you can go for a 5 million goalkeeper. He's playing for a premium defense in Chelsea. I mean, you can argue that their defense is probably a little weaker than last season. But again, with a couple of more signings, with maybe a Jules Koundé coming in, I think those centre-back positions could also be very strong. Now, the biggest issue or the flaw, or maybe something which is very different in this team, guys, is that it doesn't have any Mo Salah. If you see the midfield, it looks like a weaker midfield with Mahrez and Luis Diaz and Martinelli in the team. Now, yes, on one side, you have an advantage of 8 million midfield spots, which you can easily rotate. I mean, you can go for somebody like a Saka, maybe a Mount. Kulusevski is also there. Then there's Foden as well. So there are options in that 8 million category. But having no Salah, guys, I mean, are we really sure that somebody like a Luis Diaz can cover up Salah? Maybe, I'm not too sure. Guys, if this team had Trent, Robertson, and then Diaz, I mean, you can still kind of make a case for having no Salah, but I still feel not having Mo Salah is probably going to hurt a lot, especially when a lot of people are going to captain him. His ownership, his effective ownership is definitely going to be more than 150%, at least in the first few weeks, maybe even higher, guys. And if he does well, if he starts scoring goals like the way he was doing in his prime last season, then I think this team could really hurt. So it's a direct decision between somebody like a Kane or a Haaland versus Salah, guys. And I think Salah, with that additional point for a goal scored, he's also on penalties. He's also a great captaincy option. I think it's probably better to kind of go for one of Kane or Haaland and then go for Salah here. Now let's talk about the third team here, guys. Now it has a couple of really interesting options as well. Of course, there are those common filters in terms of Trent, Cancelo, James. You also have Salah. There's Jesus as well. I think these probably 4 or 5 players are going to be very, very popular. But in terms of the other options, I like the fact that this team has a 8 million midfielder spot. So there are options here. It also has a couple of cheap midfield options, which again, I'm not really sure there are a lot of options in that price category. But I think it kind of gives you a flexibility to maybe even downgrade to a cheaper option if you want to just dead end that particular spot. Now, in terms of the defensive options, guys, I'm still not sure about Perisic. Yes, I think if he's fit, he's probably going to get more minutes. Maybe even majority appearances with more than 60 minutes on the pitch. But I just feel there are a lot of options for Tottenham in that position. And I think there are probably better options. You can even go for an alternate strategy here, guys, where you go for a 4.5 million defender instead of going for Perisic. Now, as we discussed earlier, there is Tomiyasu. There are some other options in that 4.5 million category as well. And that's definitely one thing that you can consider here. In terms of the other talking points for this draft, guys, Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle, I think he's been doing decently well in preseason. He's probably going to be one of the standout options for that Newcastle attack, for that Newcastle team. And in case if he doesn't work out, guys, you have a couple of options in Neto and Leon Bailey. If both of them start the season well, if both of them are doing really well, you can easily switch to those options and then let go of Guimaraes. I really like the fact that this manager has gone for Nunes, guys. I've not seen a lot of teams where people or managers have gone for Nunes. I think the Community Shield match, that particular game, is probably going to give a lot of confidence to, in fact, a lot of FPL managers if they are on the fence to go for Nunes, guys. There was a lot of chatter already that he's not had a great preseason. Then he comes from the bench and he scores 4 goals, and all of a sudden he's a great player. I think he's probably going to take some time. But if Jota is injured, he cannot start the first few games. I think there's a high chance that we get the trio of Nunes, Salah, and Diaz as the front three for Liverpool. In that scenario, guys, I think he's going to get a lot of service. He likes to get on the end of things, and I think he's going to get goals, but probably might take some time there. Nevertheless, guys, I think he's a great option. Now, in case if you want to go a bit cheaper, you can probably dead end this particular spot, invest that additional money in probably getting a better midfielder, considering that this draft has the likes of Rashford, Guimaraes, and Martinelli, who are all cheaper options. Now let's talk about the next team. It's Cobra Kal 7. Guys, this is one of the teams which doesn't have a premium forward. It has a premium midfielder, second premium midfielder in Son. Now, I think a lot of people would be going for the likes of Haaland. His ownership is probably not going to get lesser unless he doesn't feature in the Community Shield game. And it's kind of said by Pep that he's not going to start the first game week fixture. I think a lot of people would still have Haaland in their team. And having Son in itself could be a great differential. Now, I know, guys, that Son doesn't have a differential ownership. But in terms of the combinations, I think this draft will differ quite a bit. Now, it's pretty much a standard draft in terms of the defense. Yes, cash, I think there is an option here to kind of go a bit cheaper, maybe go 4.5, kind of save that 0.5 million, maybe keep it in the bank. You could even try to upgrade somebody like an Andres Pereira, considering that you already have Guimaraes, and I think those are two cheaper midfield options which are not that strong. This draft also has a third midfield option in Moutinho. I think there are options that you can go for instead of Moutinho here. If you get that confirmation that Leon Bailey is probably going to start the game week 1 fixture, I think he's also a good option at 5 million. Another very interesting option could be Lokonga, guys, from Arsenal, who's 4.5 million. He's had a great preseason already, and I think he's probably one of the hidden gems that probably no one is talking about now. So there are options in midfield that this draft can have. In terms of the options upfront, guys, I think Jesus is an automatic sort of a pick. He's like an auto pick. If you want to go safe, if you want to get a good striker in that price category, I think Jesus is going to be a great option. But Havertz is a bit interesting because he's Again, he's kind of a player who's been on and off in terms of FPL points. He doesn't really get consistent returns. Yes, when he was playing as a false nine, as a number nine, he was getting goals. But let's see what happens with Chelsea. Let's see if they are willing to sign a new striker who's probably going to play in a number nine spot. Now, because of that, there are chances that Havertz might have a switch in position. But currently, what the scenario is that Sterling is going to start on the left. Havertz is probably going to play as a number 9, with Mount starting on the other side, on the right side of the pitch. Now, if you want to replace Havertz, guys, there aren't a lot of options to kind of go for. You have Jimenez, you have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you have Bamford as well. All those three aren't really playing for premium attacking teams. I think you can go for somebody like a Martial who's impressed in preseason. He's shown that he wants to stay in the team. He's shown that he's ready to fight for his spot. But I think a lot of it would depend on the position of Ronaldo. If Ronaldo is definitely leaving, if he kind of leaves the team, then Martial at 7 million in that starting role, guys, he could be a great option. Now let's talk about the next draft, guys. It's Abhitej Dream 11. I think it's a pretty template team. It's a solid team. It has the likes of James, Trent, and Cancelo. Neto, Salah, Haaland, Jesus, they're already template picks. So you're not really going against the template. You're playing a lot safer here. But then it also has somebody like a Robertson, guys, who's going to be a great differential. I really like the fact that he's gone for Trent and Robertson. I think that combination is a really strong one. With Robertson, you're going to get that advantage of clean sheet points. Plus, he's also kind of giving you attacking returns, which is great from an FPL perspective. I think the only disadvantage and the only trade off here is probably not having a single 8 million midfield spot, guys. If you see in midfield, guys, this team has Neto, Martinelli, and Rashford. Now, all three are very cheap options. In fact, even the fourth midfielder is Andres Pereira, who's a 4.5 million option. So there's not a lot of flexibility in terms of changing those positions. Now, in case if you want to get some money, add some more money in midfield, you'll probably have to downgrade one of Haaland or Jesus, or then you'll probably end up downgrading Robertson himself, and that's probably going to take away your differential advantage here. There's not a lot of money on the bench as well, guys. Tomiyasu, yes, you can probably downgrade a Tomiyasu maybe to a non-playing option, but that still won't give you enough money to get an 8 million midfielder spot. So that's the trade-off here, guys. Good attack, that's a decent midfield, a really, really good defense, and a great differential option, a great differential combination, in fact, with Trent and Robertson. Now let's talk about the next team here, guys. It's also similar to the last one where we have the likes of James, Trent, Cancelo. I think Perisic I've already spoken about. If we know that he's fit to start, I think he's a great option. In a possibility where he's probably not going to start, guys, then you have a couple of options, couple of directions to go for. You can go for somebody like a Cash or somebody else in that 5 million defensive spot, guys, or you can end up saving money, maybe go for a 4.5 million option, maybe even go for a 4 million option, and then have that additional money, have that additional flexibility to maybe upgrade a Neto or a Martinelli in midfield. Honestly, guys, I think Martinelli is probably going to start the first few games. He's probably safe for the first few games. But Nketiah has also played on the left wing, guys, and there are high chances that he and Martinelli, they could share minutes. So overall, I'm not very confident for Martinelli. For me, Saka is still the best midfielder in the Arsenal team. Jesus is still the best option from the Arsenal attack. But I think Martinelli for the first few game weeks should be okay. In terms of the bench here, guys, it has two options. It has two cover-up options in Tomiyasu and Pereira. I think both of them are going to start if they are fit, and they could easily give you at least appearance points, if not more. Now, Kulusevski, as I mentioned earlier, could be an interesting one. There are options that you can change Kulusevski to somebody else too. You can probably go for a Mount if Kulusevski is not working out. Maybe if he's not getting enough minutes. You can even go for a Man City midfielder if we feel that Man City start really strongly, because the fixtures in the beginning are really good for Man City. You can go for the likes of Mahrez and Foden, whichever is the better option at that moment. Now, in terms of defense, again, guys, I don't think so. I've mentioned this before, but Raya, I know a lot of people are already going for Raya, but I'm not too sure in terms of Brentford's defensive potential, guys. Yes, he's a cheaper option. You could go for him, but then I don't think so. Brentford, if they're not playing a back three, which they did for majority of last season, guys, I think they could actually be a little bit more open and keep less clean sheets. Now, in that scenario, you have a couple of other options that you can go for. You can go for Dean Henderson, but his initial fixtures aren't that great. Dean Henderson is a Nottingham Forest goalkeeper right now, guys. You can go for him, but yes, you have to be a little bit careful in terms of the early fixtures, the initial fixtures for Forest. The other option is Brighton's Sanchez, guys. There's a lot of speculation in terms of how Brighton are going to do if they lose Cucurella. considering that they've already lost Bissouma, who was an influential figure in midfield. Now, yes, there could be a big impact of both of these players leaving, especially from a defensive point of view, but I think still Sanchez looks like a better option than Raya at the moment. With that, we come to the next team here, guys. It's Shub 11. Yes, it also has similar options in terms of the defense here, guys. Trent, James, and Tomiyasu all are really good options, all are popular options, safe template picks. Just keep an eye on the likes of Tomiyasu and Laporte here. There's a high chance that Laporte might not be fit to start for game week 1. Keep a close eye on that Community Shield game. He's not really featured in the preseason. Nathan Ake played majority minutes, and he could be an option that Pep starts in that 11. Other than that, I think it's pretty decent. Foden also could be a great differential. I don't think so. A lot of people are going to go for Foden. Luis Diaz is a very interesting one, and this combination of Salah and Luis Diaz is also an interesting one. I'm actually quite surprised in terms of the ownership that Diaz has at the moment. He's a template pick already. He's a safe pick. I think he's shown enough to a lot of FPL managers that he can do really well given a full season, given a full preseason, though he's not really done anything significant so far in the preseason. But I think especially when the likes of Jota are injured in the beginning, I think his position definitely seems to be nailed. To be honest, I don't really see him competing with Jota on the wing. I think that competition is probably going to be between Nunes and Jota, but I still feel Diaz is going to be a great option. Up front, it has Jesus and Kane. Kane has absolutely been firing in the preseason, guys. And this is a big decision to make in terms of where to go for Kane or Haaland. Now, considering what we've seen so far, considering that we know that Kane is a known devil, I still want to go for him. And he's a great option. He's a great differential if you don't want to go for Haaland. If you want to break the template a little bit, I think Kane is a really solid option. On the bench as well, guys, it has two decent options. If Bailey gets regular starts at 5 million, he's a great bench option to have. You can easily rotate him and Neto and play the one who has a better fixture. Now let's move on to the next draft, guys. Now this is an interesting one because it has a premium goalkeeper option. So it has Alisson, who is the third Liverpool option in this team, guys. This team already has Trent and Salah. The third option is Alisson. I'm not very confident with Alisson being the third Liverpool option here because there are better options to go for. I mean, if you want to triple up on Liverpool, you can probably spend a little bit more money and go for a Robertson. He's going to give you attacking returns. Of course, he's going to give you the same clean sheet points as an Alisson, but that difference is massive, guys. And I think Robertson is still a better pick. You can even go for Diaz. It's probably going to be nailed at least at the start for Liverpool. He's also a great attacking option, would play in that front three for Liverpool, and could give you a lot of solid FPL points. So not really sure about Alisson here. In terms of the other options, bit concerned about Tierney because he's also quite injury prone. He gets injured a lot. So there's a slight issue. I'm not very comfortable with Tierney at the moment. There's also this conversation of whether Tierney is going to start as a left back or whether Zinchenko is going to take that spot. I still feel Zinchenko is probably going to play as an out of position midfielder. But yeah, that's something to definitely look out for. In terms of other options, I really like Sancho here. Great differential. Could have a decent season. I mean, he's been doing really well in preseason. But then again, we can only take so much from the preseason games. Not everything should be based on those games. Still, I feel Sancho could be a decent template breaker. He's a great option in midfield. He also gives you that flexibility to choose from another option in that price category, which could be gold. But the only option I'm not very convinced in terms of the midfield here is Olise, guys. I think there's something really happening with Olise and Crystal Palace. I mean, there was a contract extension talk that was supposed to happen. Those talks have died down. He's not really featured in any preseason squads. I mean, there's also not a mention of any injury happening to him. Crystal Palace have already signed a replacement. So I'm not very sure in terms of Olise and his spot in this team. In terms of the other options here, guys, in terms of attack, it's really interesting that he's gone for Vardy. I mean, I've hardly seen any teams with Jamie Vardy in them. And I think Jamie Vardy is going to start well. The fixtures are a bit tricky at the beginning. If you want to go for a Vardy, maybe game week 6 to 16 is probably a better window for a Vardy here. The fixtures are really good, guys. It's also probably going to be a time where a lot of people will be wildcarding. So if you want to differentiate from that strategy, I mean, going for Vardy is okay. But if somebody like a Haaland or a Kane does really well, guys, this team is probably going to have a tough time in terms of upgrading that Vardy to the other premium forward spot. Now with that, guys, we've come to the last draft, which is also a 4-4-2 draft, but it's a no Salah one. Now, first thing that really strikes me here is, of course, there's no Mo Salah. In place of Mo Salah, this manager has gone for Kevin De Bruyne. I generally feel that Kevin De Bruyne, his appeal is definitely going to die down a bit, especially with the likes of Haaland coming into play. I think Haaland, if he's fit, he's probably going to start majority games. Looks like that he's also going to be on pens. Though there's Riyad Mahrez as well, and they're probably going to share it. We don't know that yet. But Kevin De Bruyne's appeal has definitely lessened a bit. Yes, he's still going to create a lot of chances, a lot of big chances. Maybe he's going to get an odd goal here and there. But I just feel Haaland looks like a better option at the moment. Of course, I'm saying this with a lot of historical data in play, especially when we're talking about Haaland, because we've not really seen him a lot in the preseason. He did really well against Bayern Munich, but we're still yet to see his full potential in that Man City shirt. I like this team because it has that 8 million midfielder spot. You can easily switch Diaz to some other options. You also have cheaper options in Sancho and Martinelli. They're both playing for premium teams, premium attackers. I think they could be really valuable options here. The only option in attack that I'm not very confident of right now is Tony, guys. We saw Tony in terms of what he can do for that Brentford team, but this season they don't even have Christian Eriksen. Yes, Tony would be on pens. He's probably going to be their main attacker still, but I'm just not confident in his potential. I think there's a conversation to be had here where if you want to go for somebody like a Martial in that same price category, you can even save that additional money. You can probably downgrade Tony, dead end that spot, and invest some additional money in midfield. Overall, the team looks okay. Just one change I'd probably want to make here is that I would not want to have two 4.5 million goalkeeper options here. Now, this team has Henderson and Areola, guys. I don't think so. It's worth having both options. I'm not sure whether Areola is going to start. I think Fabianski is still the better option to go for. But Fabianski is 5 million. He's playing for a decent defense in West Ham. Still, I'll rather go for a 5 million goalkeeper as my playing option and then save that additional money and have a 4 million option, or I'll just go for a 4.5 million option and then a 4 million on the bench. Now, what does that do? It gives me 0.5 million extra money, which I can save, keep it in my bank, and then try to use that money when I'm making transfers, especially when the price rises come into play. Other than that, I think it's an interesting team, guys. No Salah could definitely hurt, as I mentioned earlier as well. So that is something to kind of look out for, because if you want to upgrade to a Salah, I mean, you can also use that Tony money, maybe that Areola Henderson money, and then upgrade a KDB to a Salah. So that was the last draft for this video, guys. Do share your teams in the comments below, and I'd be happy to share my thoughts. That'll be all from my side for this video, guys. Do smash that like button if you enjoyed the video today. Please do subscribe to the channel as well for more preseason content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in Saners next time.